Okay.
Hello, everybody. I'm so glad you have taken the time to come together with us to listen to Alana share her story and her heart about a bit of her story and what has happened to her. And I'll just give you a little bit of the background. Almost 5 years ago, she was in an accident, and it was a life-changing event, to say the least. And so we are here to hear from her and hear a bit about the accident so you can see where she was at that point in her life, both mentally, physically, emotionally, all of that, and how she was able to get to where she is today, which is a thriving, very influential, and very loving person who has taken something so, what could be devastating, and really transpired it into something that she was able to grow from in a lot of ways. So I'm excited for you to hear her story. I don't want to talk anymore so she can get going. And so Alana, could you just start sharing with us, take us back to that almost 5 year ago mark where the accident happened so we can get a better understanding for where you were at that time and what was going on.
Thanks, Maya, for having me here today. I'm really excited to share my story with you. I've come a long way and I found joy again in my life, so I'm really excited to share that with others as I really learned a lot through these challenges. I am a marine biologist with a background in underwater diving. I did underwater research on the Channel Islands. I went to UC Santa Barbara where I was studying before I moved to Hawaii to take a break from school and explore the underwater ecosystem in the tropics off of Maui. So at the time that I moved to Maui, I left everything and everyone back home. I've been born and raised in California. And I decided to do this super adventurous, very exciting, lifelong dream of mine on Maui. And I called up a couple dive shops and I decided to go with this dive shop that had an opening as a dive master. And I was living in bliss at the moment. Like, I had just gotten my degree at a prestigious research university. I had finished my research project and was fully excited about exploring the world with my gift that I had just worked so hard to achieve, which was the degree, right? And I got to Maui and I spent 3 weeks there before a terrible thing happened. And there was a day, July 20th, 2014, where a storm called Tropical Storm Wally rolled in, and we were taking out a crew. It's the captain's decision to take us out, right? So the captain decided to take us out to Molokini Island. It's this beautiful crescent-shaped island off of Maui. And we started heading out there, and the day was pretty decent. It wasn't the worst day that I've seen. You know, I've come from California. There's a lot more choppy days out here than I've seen in Maui at this time. So we're heading out, and a major storm hits us while I'm underwater with 6 divers. And I'm leading the dive. So I can see that the weather's not great, and I'm guiding tourists around the reefs of Maui. It's a beautiful day, actually. There's a very clear water, and I'm just watching the fish, and I see this beautiful octopus come out of its home, and it's dancing for me, which I've never seen before. And I was just fully feeling this very moment of peace and serenity before the storm hit, and I looked up and I could see the boat pitching out of the water. By pitching, I mean literally there's an anchor and the boat is coming completely out of the water, which sent me and the other dive master that was with me to call the dive. We had to cut it short. And luckily, we were still in shallow waters. This whole dive was in shallow waters because of the weather already, that we were able to cut it short and just ascend. So we all ascended and got I had to get the divers on the boat, and the ladder was like pitching out of, needless to say, their waves were huge. And so we get everyone back on the boat, and I look at the captain. The captain says, we're missing a couple. A couple what? We're missing a couple snorkelers. So we start searching for snorkelers, and we find 2 of them stuck on the island and 1 lost at sea. And I'm trained in rescue. I've been trained 3 times in rescue. I was fully prepared for this moment, so I thought on paper. But when the actual moment came up, it really tests everything in your being to really step up and decide the safest way to rescue somebody's brother, dad, cousin, right? And in this moment, I had to decide what was going to happen next. So I see the man who was lost at sea, and we get to him after the other dive master went to the other 2. And in that moment, I have his wife on one side and his daughter on the other side, his son on the island. And I had to jump in and try and rescue this man who was face down. And you have 3 golden minutes at this moment to try and rescue someone. So I decided, I'm a fast swimmer. I can do this. Like, I knew what I was going up against, and I knew the waves were intense. By intense, I mean 6 to 8 feet. And because it was a crescent, they were collecting to, 10 to 12 in the center. But I've been surfing, I've been scuba diving for the last 5 years of my life. Like, I feel good in the water. And I made the jump. I had to take a safety rope. And I jumped into the ocean, and I got to the man, and soon enough, the rope that I had got sucked into the jet engine, and unfortunately, it was wrapped around my waist. There's a long story behind that, but it's not important for this moment. And the rope cinched my waist from 18 inches down to 8 inches, and my spine everything except for my spine was cut off. And I had to rescue myself out of the ocean and get back onto the boat. There was no one else on boat to do it. The captain had to, stay at the helm. And in that moment, I could take a deep breath and feel my spine getting ready to break. But that's okay, because I could hear in the back of my mind this voice, this guidance, this divine guidance, telling me exactly what to do in every moment. So I listen. Step by step, I listen. There's nothing else to listen to except for my own shrieking, the wind, the waves, and this voice telling me what to do. I laugh now because I've analyzed it and come to great peace with it. But I get back on the boat, and it takes 2.5 hours for me to get to the hospital. Where once I get there, they say, you need to call your mom and dad. You're probably not going to survive this. So, I just got plonked on the head. I was underneath the boat. My waist was, jagged. And I was like, okay, well, I have to remember their number. And so I try and think, and I figure out my adopted dad's number, and I call him and I let him know, hey, I'm at the hospital. My doctor said I probably won't survive, but I just want to call you and let you know that I will. And I said that, and I was cracking jokes with the doctor. And 3.5 hours after my surgery, when I woke up, I found out that I got 3 feet of intestines taken out, my pancreas and liver repaired. I had a head injury, and they opened my stomach up all entirely and took out all of my organs and went through them. So fast forward, over the next 9 months of recovery, I went to many doctors, all trying to find solutions for my pain, because I was literally living in a level 10 pain every single day. My entire life was shaken. My identity was taken. I went from being a marine biologist, working my entire life to becoming one, to not being able to walk, get out of bed, breathe because my lower lobe of my lung had collapsed. And I forgot to mention my aorta had burst. So in these 9 months of like, I'd say the major healing, I found this woman who kept talking about health, and she was like, "You got to juice, you got to juice." I was lucky enough that she would juice for me every single day. This was when I couldn't even eat food. So I got down to such skin and bones that people thought I was using something because I was literally just bones and skin, which was a trigger for me. Like this was a major trigger for me. And I kept feeling like the whole universe did not understand what I'd gone through because on the outside I looked great. People would say, "Oh, you look beautiful. You look like a model." I'm like, skin and bones, like it was terrible. And then I would get this dagger in my heart, like that they would compliment me in my weakest point, that people enjoyed this state of my being. And I realized that I needed to heal myself, that I could not be this person, and I couldn't be with this pain, this pain that was seemingly self-inflicted, because everyone from the outside only saw this person, but inside I was not that same person. My body hurt, you know, I was covered in a bruise from the rope. So I went to juicing. Mind you, I was a heavy eater before. I was a weightlifter, so I was eating lots of meat, tons of food, overindulging, binge drinking, you name it. Like I was living a normal 22-year-old life, what America's standards are. Mm-hmm. And I changed overnight, quite literally overnight, into my primary source of nutrients coming from juice, only fruits and veggies. And rest was not my thing. I didn't have patience at the time. So going through something where I went from moving nonstop, getting every action item in my life completed all the time, to not being able to get out of bed. Like I literally couldn't get out of bed, like lift myself. Like I had to have friends walk me in. Literally couldn't even walk. The doctor prescribed walking to me. So like every morning to get my GI tract going, he'd say, "Go walk around the block." And like half a block turned into 3/4 of a block, turned into 2 laps to 3 laps to 4 laps. And I had the patience of my loving now fiance to do this with me. But it was I would say the first 9 months were the worst until I started reclaiming my own power. I empowered myself. I had a great Western doctor.
So I want to visit this statement you made to your adopted father. This is what the doctor says, but I'm telling you right now, that's not what's going to happen. That's not the reality. So you obviously have a very strong spirit and a will and a fighting spirit. Do you think that has been something you've always had, or did it just come up organically in this moment when you were literally being told this was life or death for you, and that just came up within you and then carried through the rest of this journey?
Well, for sure, I've always been a fighter. Ask anyone that knows me. But I wasn't fighting the right way, let me tell you. Before my accident, I wasn't fighting the right way. I was defensive. It was like this defense warrior, and it shifted after my accident. And I really did hear from God through my accident, and maybe a different time for that story. But in this near-death experience, I did receive a life path that was very clearly defined for me, and it was much more simple than I had made it out to be. I complicated what I thought my life path should be.
Okay, so
yeah,
sorry. I mean, basically, it sounds like you were eating the sad diet, the sad American diet, the standard American diet, and very defensive. So probably a lot of stressors going on, a lot of negative energy going on. which I think contributed possibly to that fighting spirit right off the bat. But the transformation of it is the beautiful journey where I think a lot of people are afraid to take because it's unfamiliar and it's something unknown and possibly uncomfortable, because you do have to stop and reflect, kind of like you were saying, and transform that fighting spirit from defensive to proactive and empowerment.
I was looking towards a lot of people to heal me. I was asking doctors, why? What do you mean I have to take prescriptions? I quit the heavy prescriptions at 5 weeks because I have a family history of abuse. So for me, it was a hard limit. Like, no, I don't care if it's supposed to help my pain. That's not important to me. What's important to me is not becoming like the people I've tried so hard not to become, you know? So I reached and reached. I went to so many doctors. I went to neurologist, spinal doctor. I'm gonna blank all the names. I went to just every Western doctor. Literally one by one, I was trying to figure out why I felt so much pain and why I couldn't get out of bed, why I couldn't walk. How could I lose my ability to run? Is this gonna be my life forever? I had doctors telling me, oh, you're not going to be able to do that again. You should never play basketball again. You should never snowboard again. You should not be doing this. It's just listing off things I should never do again. And I remember thinking, like, seriously, I was seriously depressed. I couldn't see through it. But what I did have was I had these amazing guides that weren't Western medicine necessarily. And I agree. I love Western medicine. It saved my life. So I'm not dissing them at all. And I totally believe that there's a time and a place for everything. But when it came to bringing my soul back into my body and reigniting my passion to live, that came from the tenderness of my acupuncturist, this woman on the Hawaiian Islands that took me in and really allowed me to just be with my pain and hear me out and listen and like work through it with me. And actually meditation, because it allowed me to get out of my pain. It turned out that I should say that I could not keep my digestive tract was the hardest thing, one of the most difficult things for me, but it's one of those hidden things it's like dirty, you can't talk about it. Like, oh, if I were to tell people that I had to rush to the toilet, I couldn't leave my house because I had to rush to the toilet. And that's not an appropriate thing to say to someone. Like, I'm sorry, I can't hang out. I might have to ... You know, it's just not something we're allowed to talk about. Well, I fully love talking about it now, but I wasn't when I was going through this. So I went to a GI doctor, spent like $1,000 on a GI doctor, going to do all the things that they asked me to do, and not once did they recommend probiotics. And that was at my year mark that I recognized, holy crap, I literally need probiotics. And within a month, I was able to hold food, just like that. It changed my life. And I went singing from the top of my lungs, like, you need probiotics? Everyone would come to me because for some reason, everyone needed to come to me to talk about the poop talk. And I was like, probiotics. And then they'd come back and they'd tell me that, thank you. That was exactly what I needed. And I get that. So that solved itself with probiotics. And, you know, I was already doing the enzymes with, you know, the papaya and the pineapple and the different things. The Hawaiian diet is really good for those kind of, I mean, there's fruits and vegetables everywhere. So I was very blessed at the time to be healing there. But so that was my digestive tract. But then there was this nerve pain. My toes would go numb. I couldn't sit up straight. I couldn't sit. There was no such thing as like working on a desk anymore for me. That just seemed like it would never come back. And that was 2.5 years before I ever found the solution for that. But I did see an acupuncturist regularly for years, and pain did, at the time, they didn't acknowledge acupuncture as pain management. That's a recent development as of, I want to say 2016 maybe, where the American Legion of Physicians approved it as a pain management tool, and now it's accepted on most insurances, which was what I needed. And I was being told that from everyone, oh, that's bogus. Don't try that. That's not what you need. You need a chiropractor. But I had just almost had my back broken. Like, I knew intuitively I couldn't go to a chiropractor. And I realized that everyone was trying to tell me how to heal myself, right? I was reaching to everyone to get the answers. But then it wasn't until I started meditating and I started tuning into my own body. That's where the probiotics came from, right? That message straight from my mind. It wasn't somebody who just told it to me, and I started tuning in, going inward, going inward. And then soon enough, I found out this conversation called parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. And I started following the thread and started listening in, like, okay, how am I going to heal myself? And this was like every single day. It was all I could think about. There was no joy. There was no pleasure. There was no peace. It was just this pain, pain, pain. And so I resonate with people when I see them. I can see them through the stores. I can see them when they cut you in line at the grocery store, or when you get that mean snark, and you just have to have compassion in those moments, because you don't know what they're struggling with. And I didn't know that prior to my accident. I was made a story around why would they be this way? How do they get on with life in this way? And then flip the side of the coin between pre-accident and post-accident, and I realized it's their process, it's their life. But some of the tools that I really used to integrate my healing journey was self-love, really having with exactly where I was. Hold on one second. Yes, Alaric. He's yelling in the back. I hope you guys, I don't know if you guys can hear that. He's like repeating himself. I need to go home. Sorry. I was trying to see if he just fell asleep.
So what was self-love for you? What did that look like? Because that can look, I mean, for you, it would be different from a lot of other people, I'm sure, but what did you need at that time to love yourself more?
I had to rewrite my story. I had to rewrite it and then rewrite it and then rewrite it until it fit the love, the compassion, the joy, the grace, the harmony, the balance that I knew I was capable of. And as I rewrote it, I had to align to it. There was no room for the extra baggage. I always say that we're the captain of our ship, and our ship is our body. And you can bring whatever you want onto this ship to get to that island destination that you're dreaming of. You can bring the nutrients, the food, the friends, the baggage, the relationships. You can bring it all. But you get to decide what lands on that ship and what you're going to travel through the unknown with. And the unknown is life, right? Well, I sure as heck know I'm not going to fill my boat up with fast food. Heck no. A funny story on that note, and I don't know if I'm not answering the question yet, I know, but funny story is the first meal at the doctor's after I just got 3 feet of intestines taken out was a turkey burger with French fries.
I am so glad you brought that up, because I think that is so important to bring awareness to, because we look at hospitals as a place of people going to get better because they have our best interests at heart. And like you, yes, there is a place for hospitals and the services that they provide, accidents, for example, emergency situations. But when it comes to nutrition, there is some room for growth. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I do think that's something to acknowledge too, is that I would love to be able to see that kind of transform and be more about the natural state of food, because that's where the
Mhm.
nutrients are, what your body needs when you're sick and in a place like that.
Medicine is quite literally created from plants. We know our medicine through the indigenous people and how they used plants to heal. We've done
Mm-hmm.
some in labs, of course, and that's where it's gone to in this world using the chemicals that we use. But up until very recently, it was all plants. You have pain, you have this plant. You have this, you rub this aloe. You do this, you have sunburn, you do this. It was just very simple, and it wasn't overcomplicated. There were mixtures, but where it's at now with medicine is that we've forgotten that Aristotle said that food is medicine,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a remembering that we need to get to within each and every individual. It's like remembering that this is your vessel, and and if you want to be in tune with your intuition, if you're being called to listen more and actually hear what's going on around you, then that means you're kind of getting it. You're like, I know I want this. How do I get it? Well, the answer is use your tools, and your tools are your nutrients. You don't put crap in your vehicle, do you? No, if you have a vehicle, you don't want to dump dirt down the gas nozzle hole, whatever it's called. You don't want to do that. So you want to put in the gasoline, you want to put in the electricity, whatever it is for your vehicle. But you do this because you want your car to run optimally. You go get its oil changed, right? You do these things. We do these things for our animals. Make sure that they're taken care of, but we really need to make sure that we're taken care of, because everyone around us benefits from, when we are doing our best, everyone around us benefits from that, because we're not harming others through unconscious behaviors that are just running due to a lack of energy and awareness to act a certain way that is compassionate, loving, kind. And that's really what, full circle around to my self-love journey, was acting that way to myself. I
Mm-hmm.
had to realize the way that I was talking to myself was either harming myself or helping myself. Was I stuck in a spiral that was telling myself I could never get through this? Or was I coaching myself through the whole thing and like really taking a different perspective and looking at the whole picture instead of focusing on one picture or one little thing? And that's how drama is, right? We focus on one little thing and we're like going in circles about how this person did this, or you're so offended this happened, and really taking it back out and realizing, okay, I gotta love myself unconditionally. Unconditionally. This moment right now, Grace, is being present with what is in this moment. This is where I'm at. It's not going to change in this very moment. This moment is right here in front of me. And so moment by moment, I did this like every moment. I'm not kidding you. And it was hard, and it took discipline, and it took commitment. But I did it every moment. And the moments I didn't want to do it, when I just couldn't, my soul said, I just can't anymore, I sat my butt down and I would meditate, and it would get me out of the pain for a while. If that didn't work, I'd call a friend or a loved one who can help me in that moment, because it's really about like being vulnerable enough to ask, right? And I started realizing, like, what are these tools? What do I cherish? Because prior to my accident, it was all success. I was like, I'm going to be the best marine biologist out there. I'm doing it. I'm going right to the top. Like, that's where I'm going. And after my accident, I was like, wow, who knew I actually do love my family more than success? Like, and it was like funny at the moment, because I was like, I love my family, but I got to really get to know them and love them even deeper, more unconditionally, because I was able to be vulnerable with them. And it's that, like, it's like either you aren't wounded unless you say you're wounded, right? So if you're vulnerable, but you know that you're going to get through it, you're okay, it doesn't make you wounded. It just makes you vulnerable, which is extra loving because other people are going through similar processes in different ways. So really through my accident, I learned how to be vulnerable. I didn't have to be the fierce fighter. I could be the kind and loving fighter, the one that is nurturing and present with myself, which trickled out to all my relationships. But first, it started here.
Yes.
And that was the presence that I needed. And of course, I had self love practices. I did different practices during different times in my life, but it really just meant how much do you love yourself? Do you see yourself in others when they come to you in pain? Can you respond with love? And like that was like the key that got me through the pain and got me through the hurt and the worry and the anxiety and the PTSD of the entire accident.
And you are just a huge inspiration and encouragement to not just me, because I know other people feel that pull to want to dig deeper and to self-love them more, but to also be vulnerable and reach out to other people, because I think we live in such a time that is so busy. And because we get so busy, we start to put up these walls and we start to lose connections. And not even just connections, because the internet's great at keeping us connected, but we lose true connection with people and actually having conversations that mean something, that are of value, versus, hey, how you doing? And, oh, good, how are you? That isn't connecting. And so I love that you brought up, you meditated, but that you also called people, because it really is about finding that space for yourself, having your time that you need to be able to show yourself love, but to also cherish and invest in the relationships around you that are going to lift you up and that are going to encourage you, because it's so easy to let those go by the wayside because we're so busy. But we are the managers of our time, and it seems like something as unfortunate as this accident really caused you to stop and reflect on what am I doing, and be able to take a more intentional approach to life. So thank you so
Mm-hmm.
much for being willing to share and open up and be vulnerable, because I know for myself too, with the situation I've been through just with my mom as well, it has awoken in me this desire to want to be more vulnerable and share my stories to impact others as well. So I'm excited to be able, I was really excited to hear from you so that we could be impacted by your story. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.